Hemshech Chaim Beis, we're in the middle of chapter 167, discussing Adam Kadmon, the primordial man, or this state that is being called Er Klali, all-encompassing state, and the role it plays as an interface. So after discussing in the previous chapters, how Ak, Chechenius Ak, that is, the outer dimension of Ak, which, as we'll soon be returning to, is really how explaining that level where God, he looks into the blueprint, into the Torah, and creates the world. What is he looking into? Ak is that blueprint. So Chechenius Ak, he explained, is similar to Arich in Keser, in the microcosm. Arich is Reishel and Atzolim. According to the Arizal's Tivuch is reconciliation between the role of Kesed. So some Kabbalists said Kesed is Ein Sof, the Rameh. Some said it's not Ein Sof, the Ramak, that it's one of the spheres. The Arizal is Metavach and reconciles it, saying the upper part of Kesed, Atik, is Tachtene Sheva Maitzel. That's Ein Sof. The lower part of Kesed is Arich, is the Reish HaNetzolim, the top, is the beginning of the emanations. And that's counted with the spheres. Same thing as Arich, which is the Keser Klali, the macrocosm desire for all existence, like that blueprint, has the outer dimension. Arich is commensurate with existence. It's a klal. It's not in a way that it all exists there in a literal sense, but it is definitely like a blueprint that has a relationship to what will be created from it. It's like Bereshis has a relationship with Yehi Eir and Yehi Rakia and so on, with each of the specific voices or specific energies that will create different parts of existence. So it's really a seed. And Pnimius Ak, Adam Kadmon, is like Atik, explains. And like Atik, it's really a Tachtene Sheba Maitzel, means not physically the bottom part, and not in any space level. Bottom meaning here, the end of the process. One aspect of Ein Sof, how God desires existence. But this is not desiring in a way that's commensurate with existence. It's not already a blueprint. It's still within the presence and the perspective of the divine. So it's God wants a world, but it's not yet manifest in a way that is a relationship with the world. As such, it's really like it's Ein Sof that Shiratz made, that estimates or envisions what kind of existence he wants. That's Atik, and that's Pnimius Ak. And Pnimius Ak, like he says, is the beginning of the Kav. This is a state of Pnimi. It's an internal energy, because it's the beginning of what is desired of existence, but it's completely beyond existence.
I thought Kav is before that.
Before what?
Before.
Pnimius Ak is the beginning of the Kav. That's what he says. Same level. Pnimius Ak. Chechenius Ak is like so-called next step. That's the Chidush here. And he says this is the level in Kedusha, it's called the 11th level in the words of the Emek HaMelech. Kedusha in general has 10 levels. 10 spheres, not 9, not 11. But Ak, Pnimius Ak, that is at Atik, that's Reishis HaKav, that's Antu Chad V'lei B'chushbon, it's not counted with the spheres, it's like 11th level. So now we find that Ak actually has now an interface, not just an interface, that it's a klal, and from the klal, like Bereshis is a klal, an all-encompassing element, like we spoke earlier, like the nefesh that encompasses all the faculties, or the chemer hiyuli, the unformed potential state that from which all the shapes and all elements will come. So that's one thing Ak has. And then there's Ak, the mamutza, that Ak is also an interface to Ein Sof itself. And he adds in the parentheses not only to Ein Sof, which is the root of the Eir HaGvul, but also the Eir HaBli Gvul also manifests in there, as I discussed at length yesterday. And now we'll continue on top of page 337, middle of chapter 167. He says like this: "V'zeh Masher Kosa Beitz Chaim the Eden Sefer Deis Lapshusei B'Chochmah Da'ak Meir B'Atzilus." So in the previous chapter, if you recall, he was discussing at length how Ak, Adam Kadmon, encompasses all the levels. So he was quoting an Eitz Chaim in Shar Mem Aleph Perek Dalet, and it said that Ak has within it Ak Sheba'ak, Atzilus, and Abiyah Sheba'ak. And he explained that that Abiyah is the levels of Neshama, Guf, Levush, Heichel. And then he quoted an Eitz Chaim that said that even the 10 spheres of Ak also encompass all the worlds. Shar Mem Zayim Perek Gimel, he quoted, this is on top of page 335, I'm just reminding us, the Eid Ein Sof, here's the expression, Hidei Slapshus B'chinas Chochmah Da'ak Meir B'Atzilus. So we have now like this, Eid Ein Sof manifests in Chochmah Vak, and that radiates and illuminates in Atzilus. So now he's going back to explain that Eitz Chaim. She says, Zeh Mashkos Beitz Chaim Deis Lapshus B'Chochmah Da'ak Meir B'Atzilus. Neither. It appears Shezeu B'chinas Atik Da'ak, that this is the level of Atik Da'ak. So what does it mean? The Eitz Chaim says Eid Ein Sof, through it manifesting Chochmah Vak, it then radiates in Atzilus. So we have three things here. We have Eid Ein Sof, we have Chochmah Vak, and we have it radiates in Atzilus. So he's saying neither that we're talking here about Atik of Ak, which means the higher, the inner dimension of Ak. In other words, the inner dimension of Ak manifests in Chochmah of Chitzenius Ak, and through that it goes into Atzilus. So before he was using that just to explain how Ak encompasses the spheres. How do we know this? Because Chochmah Vak, from there comes Atzilus. Then he explained how it is with all the other levels as well. Who said Nimtza, but he said yeah. And now he's explaining what this means, why. I'll explain soon that's probably more the practical application of this, but let's first understand the level. Shari Bezeir Harikiya al Maimar Hazeh Bereishim Nusud de Malka, because in Zeir Harikiya, which is a Pirush of the Arizal, on the Zohar that says in the beginning of the Zohar, right in the beginning of the Zohar, we learn Bereishim Nusud de Malka. As we learned this means the beginning of the Rishus of the Melech. It means the beginning when God desired. So Golav Galifu B'Tihri Allah is the expression that he engraved in Tehiri Allah, and the supernal purity or supernal light. That's what's considered to be the Asis Harashima. We learned this before as well.
Supernal void.
It's round.
Not void, I wouldn't say Tehiri void.
It's round, not square.
It's light.
That article.
No. So what does he say there? Kosav, the Kashem Shamachos Datzilas Nasis Atik Libriya. Just like on the microcosm, Malchus of Atzilus becomes the Atik of Bria. We've learned this. Just again, spell it out. On the microcosmic level, the Atik of any higher level becomes, the Malchus of a higher level becomes the Atik of the lower level. So think of it like circles on top of each other. So the legs of the bottom, the Malchus, the lowest of that, becomes the crown. That's why Keser Malchus. So Keser, Malchus becomes Keser. That's the way it works. So 10 spheres, the Malchus becomes the Keser for the next one. So the lowest level of that is the crown for the next world. So we say this about Malchus of Atzilus become Keser Bria. So he says in Zeir Harikiya, the same is true in the macrocosm. Malchus Atzilus the Klolos. Same thing, Atzilus, the macrocosm of Atzilus, which we know now is the 10 hidden spheres. Before the Tzimtzum, Nasas b'chinas Atik l'Adam Debriya de Klolos. It becomes Atik for the macrocosmic Bria.
Before
Ak. This is what he says before. If you remember, the Deresh Zakav, that before above the skull of Ak is Ke'ein Atika. Right? What's Atik? Because it's Atik coming from Malchus of Ein Sof. For right now, let's be technical. Right now, let's deal with the technical part of it. So, meaning, this means that Atik the Bria, this is the point of Malchus of Atzilus, of the higher world. Shebekas as a Mosach, that pierces the curtain, v'yered as bebria, and descends into Bria. So essentially, Atik is really a higher dimension that's piercing through the curtain between the two realities, the two states of a consciousness or existence, and becomes the Atik of the next level. Like it says in Eitz Chaim, Shar Seder Rabia Perek Aleph. You see clearly that Rebbe Rashab is varfen sich here with Eitz Chaims and with Zerakiyas and Pirushim. He really is analyzing these pieces in Kabbalah, which are very vital to this discussion of the interface. Because what he's doing here is discussing the interface of the role of Kesed and Arich as a result. I'll explain this more. I just want to read it inside, then we'll discuss it right now. So just like it is in the microcosm, the lowest level Malchus pierces the curtain between Atzilus and Bria and becomes the crown, the Atik of the next level. Same thing in macrocosm. This is Reishis HaKav. This is the Reishis HaKav, the head and the beginning of the Kav. That pierces the darkness of the Tzimtzum. This is talking about the Tzimtzum Arisha now. So it's not just a curtain. Between Atzilus and Bria microcosm, it's only a curtain. Here it's a Tzimtzum, it pierces the Tzimtzum. And on this it says, Oz, then Yibaka Kashach will pierce like the light pierces the darkness when the dawn breaks. The break of dawn, basically. Shachar, by the way, we say Aleis HaShachar, so the Zohar asks, why does it say Aleis HaShachar? Shachar is morning. So it says Shachar is really Cheshach. Shachar is from Shachrus. So Aleis HaShachar means that the Shachrus raises in order that the light pierces the darkness. So it says.
Who's saying that?
Who? Zohar. On when it says Vayavik Yishimei, whole night. So it says Vosap Aleis HaShachar. So it says Aleis HaShachar, Shachrus. It stems. It's also probably prat. You know, we say it Aleis. What does Aleis HaShachar? What Shachar mean? Shachar doesn't mean light.
Light is appearing. But that's
we say it. No, it's Aleis HaShachar. No, the pale, you're right, but technically what's happening is, you see clear, then it will pierce, like light pierces the darkness. We learned this also, Yaakov is Baka.
Yeah.
U'mislabish b'bchinas chochmeh da'ak. Okay, so this is the Havana here.
His Malchus Atzilus the Klolos is higher than Pnimius Ak.
Yeah, Malchus Atzilus the closest is the lowest spheres in the 10 spheres. That is like the Tachteina Sheba Maitzil. That will become Atik. That will pierce the Kav. That will pierce the Tzimtzum, and that will be the Kav. That is the Kav. That's where the Kav is rooted. The Malchus of Ein Sof. 1 second.
But that's not Ak yet, right?
Well, there's two stages in it. There's how it's like Malchus of Bria of Atzilus becomes Atik of Bria. It's like two stages. Yeah, one before it pierces and one after it pierces. And technically speaking, but once the bottom line is Atik is Malchus of Ein Sof, as it is after the Tzimtzum.
But Ak is after the Tzimtzum, so it's like interesting.
So same thing here. No, same Malchus of Atzilus is also after the Mosach. It pierces the curtain. Atzilus is here, Bria is here. They could just be disconnected worlds. Say no. There's something that from here becomes something that is. It's still Atik, means Netak. Even as it becomes the Kesed, it's still not the Klal. It's not a relationship with the Bria. It doesn't have a close relationship with the 10 spheres.
It does have some sort of relationship because it says Mislabeshes accumulation. Mislabeshes shows that it does have some sort of...
No. Read the whole point. The whole point is like this. that Arich has a real relationship. Rational Tzolim. As I explained yesterday.
Yeah, but the way he says it here,
There's nothing new here. There's nothing new here. He said it already before.
The word mislabeshes is a very interesting word that he uses.
First of all, it's a word from Eitz Chaim. And second of all, I don't see the problem.
Shows that there's some sort of relationship. If it's totally netak, it wouldn't be able to be mislabesh by gemulation.
I don't know. So what are you saying? That it's Arich? It's not Arich. It's Atik.
Yeah, right, that's what I'm trying to understand. Because Atik is usually is netak.
But Atik is called Atik. It's still Atik of Atzilus. So no matter how much it is something.
Atik as it's like removed from it, but so how is it
that's why you
mislabesh?
need an interface for a mamutza.
No, but how is it mislabesh?
Isn't it describing the two levels in the whole
If it
thing?
was a direct
One
relationship,
is
you
that
would
it's
need a
radiation,
mamutza.
other than
It's
Slavish.
not mislavish
That's
exactly.
Atik. That's Atik.
Well, first of all, I explained it at length.
It's going to be Pinimis.
If you go your speed, I will have to not explain it anymore. Because I explained, if you go back to 2 classes, I explained this at length, just for the record. But you didn't get it, right?
Continue. You can continue. It's fine.
Now I just want to point out, this I did explain. I'm Fedish explained, not
I
Beremis.
totally understand the concept. I'm just trying to understand.
No. What you're asking, I explained the difference between Arich and Atik. Now, Atik also is an interface at the end of the day. That's the whole point. It's not. I mean, why don't you ask a better question? What's the difference between Atik after the Tzimtzum and Malchus of Ein Sof before the Tzimtzum? It's a major difference. There's a Tzimtzum in between. It's a big thing. Anyway, I will explain it again because it deserves explanation. But just for the record, I just want to tell you I did discuss this. Because he's already essentially saying it earlier, except he didn't say it specifically. What? But right now, let's read it inside, then we'll understand the Havana of it.
The first time he says Misrashes, that's a quote from Eitz Chaim.
What?
The first time you used the word.
No, in the previous chapter. He's quoting the Mistabeshes is in the previous chapter.
Okay, but that's a quote from Eitz Chaim.
Yeah,
Directly.
yeah, Shar, here. It's Chaim, right here.
And now he's explaining what it means, his Rashes. He's giving us an understanding.
It's Chaim Shar Mem Zayin Pei Gimel. He specifically gave us the exact space. Let's remember again the flow here. You have to keep in mind the flow, and then it's much easier to understand. And you cannot talk. Right now we're talking technical. If you're trying to figure out technically, it's really not the way to do it. You want to be technical right now, you can be technical. But that's not the goal. The goal is to understand what it means. The technical part of it is that, they're not the technical. The Havana here is going like this. I'll soon explain it more. I want to finish the whole subject before I discuss it more at length. The dilemma is, how does existence connect to beyond existence? We already explained that if you remember, Atzilus, Kav, serves as an interface because it's but it's Hakvul. Remember he asked the question earlier, how does that help? Gvul and Bli Gvul never meet. So he answered because the Hakvul is not really Gvul as we understand it. It's part of God's wish to have Gvul. So there's Bli Gvul and there's Hakvul. Hakvul is really just another dimension of Bli Gvul. That he explained and answered at length earlier, a few chapters earlier, where he spoke about Atzilus. You remember that discussion? It's very vital, actually. It's very important to what we're discussing now. I believe, where was that? That was chapter, when he spoke about the Chachmelo, Chachmetata.
Yeah. Actual interface.
Yeah, I want to just go back there a second. Where was that?
The Orem and Tzi relates to the word.
I don't think it's that far back. Okay. I just want to see where it is. No, it's a thing of Matis. Yeah.
Is it Kufam?
Kuf Samach, I think. Yeah, 160. So he answered this two Amshachim, B'chinas Ein Sof, B'chinas Midei Gvul. Yeah, 160 and 161, two vital chapters. They're like key chapters, the whole Ayin Beis. That's what he explained there. He explained that there's two ways he explained it. One is he explained that Eiris and Kalim, that Eir is that connection, and the other was Primis HaChachma, remember Chetzenis HaChachma, Chachma Ilah, Chachma Tata, which is very relevant because he's going now also Chachma. So he said those were the two things.
Yeah, he says this is the key line.
Okay, so good.
So if you have that, some B'chinas Ein Sof B'li Gvul, like Shanimshach Al Dei Tzimtzum Shreis B'Gbal, Al Dei Zeh Hu Sheish B'Beis Inyanim.
Yeah. Chapter 160. And 161. Then he said that Ak, on the other hand, he came to explain a different part of the interface. If you remember when he explained Ak, he said clearly, he says, Meila Eir, we understand. If you look at the bottom of page 328. So what does he say there? He says, what's Ak's role as an interface? Well, the El Peder Kusamachal from his boy Shamutso Eram Sheben Sevahim Khins Kavahin Eran Atzil Shesh by Beis Inyanim. Shabab Shesh Beis Shabab Khins Gvul Midav Khins Ein Sof the Yesidov B'Mkede. But Ak, you can't say that. And the Kav and Atzilis, you can say, is an interface between the concept of Gvul and Bli Gvul. Not that it made a connection between our Gvul and the Gvul of Elokus, but it began some type of interface. Why? Because you have now Elokus that's Tutzachon and not Tzura from Gvul. We'd call it a Medida Atzmis, as I explained yesterday. Our Gvul is limitation. When you say a table as a size, this world is a finite world. When you say God has the power of finite, you're not saying God has limited. You're saying He has the power to limit His flow. It's a whole different type of limitation. Our limitation is a fundamental one. We can't jump out of our parameters if we want to. When God chooses finite, it's a part of God's infinite power to choose also a finite dimension, to manifest that way. Like He said about the Maris Gdelis and Ketanis, the big, small and large mirrors. That just like Kishem, just like He fills all of the expanse of existence, He could also manifest Himself between the two. Okay? So the Gvul really is Eira Gvul, Beferish Eses Sfiris Hagnuzis, Chachma Bina, so on. But it's Shir Atzmei, it's an expression of His infinite possibilities. And as we learned, it's not only an expression, but it also contains still a Reshim. It still remembers, even when it becomes this Gvul, this form of 10 spheres, it still has a inclination, the perspective of an infinite amount of spheres. Now remember, that's still not sufficient. You still need a tzimtzum, because that type of Eira Gvul is in the roots. God envisioned existence, so you have in the divine so-called image, the divine vision. You have Gvul, but we're not going to have a Gvul like ours until there's a full tzimtzum that completely conceals it all. Ak, on the other hand, is a part of the Mutza on the other side of the curtain. Ak's Mutza is in order to create klal to prat. That's what we discussed till now. Once you're ready, conceal. No, not Pnimis. Pnimis is going to be an interface between these two. Don't jump. That's exactly where I'm leading to. So now Ak, he came to explain, was the opposite. Ak is not dealing with the jump from before Tzimtzum to after Tzimtzum. That's being dealt by the Kav and by Eir, and by the Tzimtzum, as according to the Arizal, the Tzimtzum deals with the Ein Arech. Because as much as we'll say that our Chesed and our structure of existence is rooted in the 10 hidden spheres, they still have to account for an infinite distance between God's Gvul and our type of Gvul. And the Tzimtzum explains that. So combine Tzimtzum and combine Eir, you're having us a nice deal. But then comes another part of the interface, which is how does that then start becoming related to our existence, the way we understand it. The Tzimtzum deals with the jump. The Eir has in it the root of the spheres, but now you need it to actually manifest. So he says the beginning of the process, in a way that God applies himself, this is now not just no longer God just visioning existence. It's no longer him just being Mamshech Eir Hagvul. But now he's established a foreman, as we put the example, who's heading the contractor that's running that's actually going to build the building. This is Ak. It's the blueprint. If you don't have a blueprint, the architect in his mind also has the vision of all of existence, but you can't build based on that vision. The blueprint is the first place, in some form, still not Metzias, still a blueprint. Compared to the building, a blueprint is just a piece of paper. So Ak is the klal to the prat, but now you have a blueprint that you can now use it. One second. This is Chetzenius Ak. This is Ak. Now he comes back and goes back and says, you know what? That Ak really has something deeper. Ak has something that is actually now going to also be an interface between the Kav and the Eir that we discussed earlier. Because Ak, Pnimius Ak, is not the blueprint. Pnimius Ak is like the Atik that's above. And as Atik, it's like the Reishis HaKav. So it has an element of also Ein Sof, the Eir HaGvul. So now we have that Ak also reflects part of that Eir that we spoke about before. So there's a new dimension in Ak that is now helps serve the purpose. Now it doesn't distinguish yet between, is there a difference between the Eir HaKav and Primis Ak? Right now it looks like Primis Ak is the Eir HaKav, Reishis HaKav. That's what it sounds like. And where is it rooted? In Malchus Ein Sof. Arich, the blueprint, outer dimension of Ak, is not rooted in, you can't say it is Malchus of Ein Sof. You can't say it's connected to the Eir HaGvul. So in other words, Ak has a reminder of what's going on before the Tzimtzum. And Arich, Chetzenius Ak does not. It's one step removed from that.
The Pnimius is not the same
as the Chetzenius. Of course not.
No. It's not the same as the Malchus that.
It's just the same, like I told you. Malchus. Why can't this be understood? I understand. Malchus of a higher level becomes Atik of the lower level.
It's not exactly the same. It becomes, but it's a lower level.
So good. That's why there's a Tzimtzum. He says it pierces the Tzimtzum. He uses those words. So it's piercing the Tzimtzum. In some places, actually, it says it has more power than the Malchus because it has the power to pierce. Malchus of Ein Sof doesn't have the power to pierce. So just if you want to really be confused.
More power, but in the bottom line, the Pnimius Ak.
What? My Kamashmalan. Who's saying otherwise? He says clearly it pierces. There's a curtain or there's a tzimtzum and it pierces. So it's clearly moving into. But are you thinking physically, like where it is?
Okay, I want to understand.
Everything is, it's all levels. It all means that it's going downward, obviously. But what we have now is essentially a reminder. More than a reminder, you have a manifestation, post-Tzimtzum, of something pre-Tzimtzum. Without this Atik, without this Reishis HaKav, without Pnimius Ak, you don't have that. You'd say there'd be some cutoff point. So it's a critical piece in this interface that the outer Ak, its inner dimension, does have something from pre-Tzimtzum consciousness.
And that leads to the Chetzenius Ak.
We're soon going to learn. Listen, we'll go slowly. We'll go right now. And then he says that. Now that's where we are now. And that level, it goes. It says, now he says this. ובחינת הדס, וירד את בחינת הדס, כמו כן בחינת עתיק דאג זה בחינת ריש הקו שבקי חשך הצמצום, שעל זה נאמר זה ברק השם, ומסלב זה בחינת חוכמה דאג. And it manifests in חוכמה ואק. ועל ידי חוכמה דאג, מסלבש בחוכמה דאצילס. And through manifesting in חוכמה ואק, it then manifests and encloses in חוכמה ואצילס, בבחינת פנימיus החוכמה. In the inner dimension of Chachma. So you see how nicely it stems, because remember he spoke about the inner dimension of Chachma also earlier as being that part of the interface that represents the source. Remember Chachma law as opposed to Malchus. Now he's going to go back to that subject, because if you remember that's the subject. If you go back to chapter when Moshe, chapter Kuf Samach Gimel, he spoke the whole thing with Moshe, Hareini nach chvidecha pani lo yaro. That was what he said there. So what did he say, pani lo yaro, if you remember? He said, so pani lo yaro, kamen neshamash, yeah. So this right now is connecting back to chapter 163. Very vital to make the connection. You may recall that we discussed at some point back, when was it? Yeah, at the end of the topic of Yisrael Saba Tfuna, when he moved up to Abba V'Milon, he said, Pnimis Chochma and Pnimis Bina are Pnimis Atik. If you remember. And that will only be revealed in the future, Lost Lovi. So he said there clearly that there's Chochma as it's Chetzenis Chochma and Chetzenis Bina, but Pnimis Chochma and Pnimis Bina are actual manifestation of Atik. So it's very consistent with what he's saying here. Obviously, it's Pnimis Abba is Pnimis Atik. So Pnimis Chochma has a relationship with Pnimis Atik. So that's another step of the interface. But the earlier step is that Malchus of Ein Sof becomes Atik of Ak, Pnimis Ak. That manifests in Pnimis Chochma of Ak, which will manifest in Pnimis Chochma of Atzilus. What we have technically is Chetzenius Chochma, which comes from Chetzenius Chochma of Ak, which does not have that level of Atik in it. It has more Arich in it. But for the complete picture, we have to know there's also this dimension.
Exactly what he said.
Huh?
Yeah.
That's exactly.
Right, but so that has the shim of the words over here that he says that the Mislabesh is begimel reishon, and that goes on.
I know we Gimel Reish, we spoke Mislabesh is B'Chochma so far.
He says begimel.
I didn't reach there. We didn't learn it yet.
You're holding it's before Cheshach HaBekeh at Tzimtzum. One line before.
I skipped a line? Oh, yeah, okay, yeah. One second, what did I read? Yeah. You mean 3 lines before? Maybe I did skip something. One second, let me just see, did I skip anything? Let's just go back. Shari Bezeriki explains just like Malchus Atzilus Nasa Atik Lebidik, Malchus Atzilus the close Nasa becomes Atik Lodem Debri the close. Right. Ubchins Atik the Beria. Yeah, and there's Ubchins Nekuda Malchus Atzilus Makes is a Mesach V'Yerez Ubchins Meslav Begrimel Shen is the Beria. Oh, I think I did skip a line. And Atik of Beria, we're talking now the microcosm, is the point of Malchus of Atzilus that pierces the curtain and manifests in Bria, and descends in Bria, and manifests in the Gimel Rishenis of Bria, which is Chabad or Chachab, like it says in Eitz Chaim Shased Rabbi Yaakov. Came Chinas Atik Dag, Zeb Chinas Ish Lakasha B'Kei Chish Chatzim Shon Zeh Nemer Ozi Boka Kshich Lavko Muslabish B'Chinas Chochma Da'ak. I meant there's Chochma Da'ak. Okay.
How could Atik, which is Nevdal and Natak Menavdal, be?
So I told you because he says, look, read the next line. By the Chochma Da'ak, Muslabish B'Chochma that says B'Chinas Primis HaChochma, because Primis Abba, Primis Atik. That's the point. That's the answer.
Primis is Lavdavke Inyan Mugbul, das was gerecht wird.
I'm not talking about that at all. No. One second. We learned.
But here in Kuf Samach Gimel, he's saying that it's Mechinas Chetzenis HaChochma is Mislabish. The bothering me is Mislabish.
I know what you. But Pnimis Atik is Mislabish and Pnimis Chochma.
Here it doesn't say that. Here in Cheshich Zayin.
It does say that. Read it again.
Pnimis Abba doesn't say that's Mislabish. It becomes Pnimis Abba.
That's the same thing like Mislabish.
Mislabish is a Chetzenis, he says.
No. Atik is not Mislabish and Chetzenis Chochma. Only in Pnimis Chochma. That's the point.
Here he doesn't use the word Mislabish.
Because he's not talking, because it's Mislabish and Pnimis Chochma. It's perfectly fine. Pnimis Abba, Pnimis Atik is like mislabish.
Here he says only Yonik b'masla daim b'chinas pnimis hakasa.
Chitzenius Chachma is Yonik. Pnimis Chachma is more than Yonik. Pnimis Chachma is Pnimis Atik. You're just talking about Chitzenius Chachma or Pnimis Chachma? You're talking about Chitzenius Chachma. Chitzenius Chachma is correct. It's not mislabish of Chitzenius Chachma. It steams through and through. Not only here, as I said, it goes all the way back to when he spoke about this Abba V'Miloyin. That was the whole point. This is a Havana here that is consistent throughout. That on the previous level it connects. You show me anywhere that Primis Chachma does not manifest Primis Atik.
It says clearly.
It doesn't say such a thing. Chitzenius Chachma. I keep telling you, it says Chitzenius Chachma, not Primis Chachma. Primis Chachma is Primis Atik.
Pnimis chachma is pnimis atik. That I understand.
That's like mislabish. It's even more than mislabish. When you say Primis Chachma is Primis Atik, you're not even saying mislabish. You're saying it is. It's even deeper than mislabish.
But when he says mislabeshes begimulation, he means
Not gimulation. In Chachma of Ak.
Mislabeshes means
Yeah.
what?
Is Primis Atik. Atik is mislabish and Primis Chachma. That's what he's saying. Look at the next line. Chachma that mislabish Chachma. That's because Primis Chachma. First of all, he doesn't talk about Chachma the Ak earlier. He's talking about Chachma da Atzilus, right? That's the question here. So Atik is manifests itself in Chachma of Ak, and Chachma of Ak is mislabish Chachma da Atzilus because Primis Chachma. That's the key. Primis Chachma, not Chitzenius Chachma.
Yeah, let's go next.
You've shown me a line that contradicts that. I don't think there's a line there.
What is it when you say Atik and Bria before? You said that pierces.
Malchus of Atzilus pierces and becomes Atik of Bria. And Plotis.
Yeah, okay, so it doesn't do it, seems. It doesn't do it. It's piercing the text. Now, why would it pierce the symptom when it pierces the symptom?
Because it comes from before. It comes from Malchus the Ein Sof.
So every Atik and every level is related to before the symptom?
Sure.
Really?
Atik. It's related. Sure. The whole idea of Atik is Malchus
Mislabeshes begimulation.
Every Atik, no matter what, even Atik of the Zia,
Yes.
has something from before the symptom.
We don't deal with Primis Chachma. Our existence deals with Chitzenius Chachma. We don't deal with Primis Chachma. It's also lovely. If you go back to the chapters on Abba,
That means chachmas the
it's going to be discussed later. It's going to be connected to that.
From before. From Ein Sof. Atik on every level. Like that. Yeah, Zimmerman, right?
What's the question?
Atik of every level has something from before the symptom.
I don't know. It doesn't say those words. I don't like those words at all
I'm trying to
because
understand what it said. It's the Atik the Bria pierces.
I keep telling you, it doesn't say Atik the Bria pierces anything. It says Malchus of Atzilus pierces.
Which is not.
And when it pierces, once it pierces, then it becomes that. It says Malchus da Atzilus shebekasas hamasach. Why don't you read inside? So you won't make any. It says the Malchus of Atzilus pierces the curtain. I read it 4 times already, and it descends into Bria and manifests in the Gemul Shenis of Bria.
The clothes he's talking.
That's Protis, like the Protis. That's the clothes. That's the Zeir Rakia. Zeir Rakia is comparing the microcosm to the macrocosm. Zeir Rakia is saying, just like it is in Atzilus and Bria Protis, that the Malchus of Atzilus becomes the Keset or the Atik of Bria. Same in the macrocosm, the Malchus of Ein Sof of Atzilus Klovus, which is before the 10 hidden spheres, pierces its Simpson, becomes Atik of Bria the Klovus, which is Ak, which is Primis Ak, basically.
So you say Bria and Yetzirah are not like this?
Who says not? This is what he says in the Zeir Rakia. He's comparing the 2 Brias. It's on a lower level. You want to say if Malchus of Yetzirah, if Malchus of Bria becomes Atik of Yetzirah, correct. But it's not what he's discussing here. It wouldn't fit here. He's talking here Bria. And this is not mathematics. This is different levels. We're talking here the beginning of existence, not later stages. In later stages, you have a similar process. You have in all levels the process. We say everything is in all levels. But it's not the same. I discussed at length what would be the difference between Bria de Kolos and Bria de Protis. It's 2 different realities. They're not just words. Go ahead. Tell me how fast to go.
Okay, let's go.
No, you're not in a very good pace.
Vayidei chochmah da'ak mislabish b'chochmah datzil primis ha-chochmah. Okay, now he's going to say. Now he's going back to that topic. So what he's tied together here, this is where I'm trying to put the connection to back to chapters 160 through 167. He's tying now back that Ak, first he moved Ak to the process of existence. Now he's moving Ak back, Primius Ak, into a place that is in between these two realities. So that's what we have now. And this becomes another key step in the interface. So Primius Ak, which manifests ultimately in Chochmah of Ak, which manifests in Primius Chochmah. Then now he's going to explain the Moshe Rabbeinu, which he discussed in chapter 163 rather. So you really have to go back there to understand. If you recall what he said there he spoke this whole Arichus the Hashirah. There's also a Zohar Ariki, if I recall correctly. The Zohar on the page, where was it? It was all Arichus about Hashirah. Yachach Meinu Bereshe. In that chapter 162. If you remember the whole thing with Hashirah and Chachma. Whether they do perceive the essence of the divine or they don't perceive the essence of the divine. So there they established that even Moshe Rabbeinu, the highest levels, Panei Lo Yiro. There's something you don't relate to. And then there's that which you do relate to. When Mashiach comes, he says, Lasad Lavi, end of chapter, I think, 162, he says, Etzem Muhus, not just with our mind, but actually with the eye, that will happen when Lasad Lavi. This Ayin Mamish. Okay, so now he's going to explain this in the context of Ak. And I'll explain it once we read it inside. Because it's all critical, all pieces are relevant here. Because the bottom line question really in Havana is, what's the difference between Primius Ak and Chetzenius Ak? Now we understand the difference based on what he said. Chetzenius Ak already has a relationship with existence. It's like a blueprint. Like I mentioned the other day, the foreman. They already have a relationship. The workers can speak to the foreman, they can refer to the blueprint, etc. Atik remains removed. Atik remains a representative of the divine. It's like the foreman that's running the construction site is one step removed from the actual so-called orders that were given from the architect into Atik. So that's the difference. But how does it manifest? Well, we're going to learn now the difference is between Acherai and Panai. So when it says Acherai of Moshe is going to be he saw Chetzenius Ak and Panai Lo Yiro. Panai is Primius Ak, which is going to be Atik and Reishis Akav. Yet something was still achieved, because even when you say Panai Lo Yiro, you're already saying that there's something you're talking about it at least. Whereas if you don't have Atik, then all you have really is before the Tzimtzum of Malchus. If Malchus Ein Sof never became Atik or Bri, you wouldn't have Primius Ak, you wouldn't even have a Panai Lo Yiro to speak about. So even the Shlil is an inyan. And that's going to be the difference between Atik and Arich. Arich has a Chiyuv-dika relationship with existence, and Atik has a Shlil-dika relationship. So Atik represents more the distance, but also has some connection. And Arich represents the closeness. In a way, basically, if you remember, we discussed the Ramak and the Rizal. So Ramak, we said, everything is Ilav Ol. There's a relationship. We said that's more like Ak, more like Keser. The Ramak will be like Chetzenius Keser. That's what's going to happen. And the Rizal is going to be, the Rizal is bringing Primius Keser, the Chiddush of Primius Keser. That's essentially one of the Chiddushim of the Rizal. Just like the Chiddush of the Tzimtzum, it's also a Chiddush that there is a deeper dimension in Keser, Atik, that is a part of Ein Sof, Tachtein Shuv Ein Sof. Whereas according to the Ramak, if you remember, he said, Keser, even the highest levels of Keser, he doesn't recognize an Atik. Even the highest levels always is still a sphere, it's still a creation, or an emanation. I want to just see one thing, 1 second.
So Moshe
Okay.
didn't reach the Pnimius up.
So let's see, we'll read it inside. V'zehu shebikesh Moshe Hareini Nosh Chavidecha, and this is what Moshe requested. Show me your glory, show me your covet, which is the face. V'yedur the covet ub'chinas chochmah. It's known that covet is the level of chochmah. Covet, glory, honor, level of chochmah. Covet begematria lamed beis, and lamed beis nesivus chochmah. Covet is the gematria of lamed beis. Covet is Chov Beis Vav Daled is 22, 28, 32. So it's the same gematria as the 32 paths of Chochmah. Moshe is Chochmah, so why is he asking to see Chochmah? Moshe is Chochmah, is the level of Chochmah, because when it speaks about his name, it says he was drawn from water, because I was drawn from water. Water is Chochmah. So Moshe is Chochmah, so why is he asking to see Chochmah? Kovid, Lamed Beis, and Sivus Chochmah. He requested not the Chochmah he had on his own. The Chochmah, the way it manifests, the Chochmah, the way in which it manifests Pnimis HaKeser. Either microcosm or macrocosm. It works on both. Like the Ramaz in Bamidbar Daf Kuf Yud Ches Amud Aleph says, just a second, my friends, I want to make sure it's a different Ramaz. Not yet, it's a different Ramaz. Good. It said Ramaz earlier. Want to make sure we got our Ramaz. It's Kuf Pei Zayin. Okay.
There's a school what happened called Ramaz. Name that says.
What does he say? Bepirish Hareini Nosh Chavidecha shezel k'mei she'chochmah malbish l'bchinas hakeser. So he's bringing proof. Ramaz says, when he says Hareini Nosh Chavidecha, it's not just he's asking for chochmah. He's asking how chochmah malbish hachochmah enclosed to the level of keser. V'zeu kveidecha, the word kveidecha, kovet chof, dein kovet, your kovet. Chof is keser. So it's not just kovet chochmah, it's kovet chochmah as it connects to keser, or as it says primis keser. Now he's going to ask a question, even though the Ramaz, even though it says there, shemal b'shla arich, which contradicts what he's saying here. So even though there he says the way it's malbish to arich, not atik, the intention is on mamish primius mamish. So it's not mamish exactly what the Ramaz says, but it's still consistent because he's talking about a deeper level than he has on his own. No. I remember at the end of the day, primius arich relates to primius atik, etc. Chochmah. Moshe is asking not for kovet chochmah that he has on his own. He's asking for chochmah as it manifests pnimius keser. As Ramaz says, malbish b'chinas keser. Even though the Ramaz says arich, he says, but his kavanah is pnimius mamish. And look, it says look inside there. So clearly, if yes, so you'll see the intensity of it. He's qualifying it. Because if it said atik, it would be even more yumtak, even more fitting. Well, barai mehem lepincha definition. It's not a contradiction because again, remember the interfaces here are so precise. Where arich meets atik, but the bottom line is primis hakeser. As we shall learn, there's two levels. There's going to be primis hakeser, there's a primis arich, and there's primis hakeser, which is atik. And even in atik, there's chitzenius atik and primis atik. So don't get so excited. There's still many levels to go here. The challenge is how do we explain it in Aveda, the difference, and not just another, Shpalt Nahar, another level. You actually want to have, what does it mean? But we'll get to that after we read this. Hey, Amid Beis and Rai Mehemna. This is Zohar, Pinchas, page 255b.
What's the Rai Mehemna?
It's a section. It's a section in the Zohar. That's sections that are called Rai Mehemna. They usually deal with the mitzvahs. The Biur mitzvahs in the Zohar are Rai Mehemna. They say it's mekubal from Moshe Rabbeinu. So Rai Moshe is Rai Mehemna. So it says when he heard from the Rai Mehemna, it's like the name of Moshe. So the Zohar has different sections, just like in Gemara, there's Mishnah, Gemara, Braisa. So in Zohar too, there's Braises and there's Rai Mehemna. There's a lot of sections in Zohar. There's 5 or 6 sections, if I recall correctly. Sifra Dichnusi, there is but there's more than that. There's throughout the Parshas you'll find a subsection. No. Seichad is a different sefer. That's like a
particular portion in the Zohar.
When you read the Zohar, you'll suddenly see a section called Rai Mehemna within the Zohar itself.
Isn't the Zohar like parsha to parsha?
Yeah.
Yeah, but in the Parshas itself, there's like different sections.
They'll say it says Rai Mehemna.
Yeah, you know what? Bring me a Zohar and I'll show you. Avram. Bring me a Zohar right here.
He wrote Shisha Sidrei Mishnah.
Right, you see three blacks for him. Any one of them.
They've all.
Give me the first one, Aleph, Bereshis.
He wrote on the Chavdalet Sforim, the whole entire Tanakh.
Who?
The Rashbi. But everything was.
Rabbi Abba wrote it technically, but yeah.
Everything was lost. They lost all
Yeah, there's the Sifra D'Shnusna Id Rabbi the Zut Rai Mehemna Medrash Hanelam Sisrei Teire Rozid Derozin V'Tesefta. These are the sections of Zayas.
Is this true what he's saying? He's saying that he wrote on the whole Chavdalet Sifra.
And Chavdalet Sforim, everything is lost.
Some of it is lost, yeah, and we have Zohar Chadash continues Shir Hashirim Rus.
You have Chamesh Megillas and all the other things.
Would you read somewhere that it was lost?
I also heard that he had one for each letter of the alphabet. Zion,
Here you see there's a whole Akdami here from Menachem, Reuven Margolius, Rai Mehemna Sefer HaMitzvahs. Rai Mehemna of Zohar is basically Biurim HaMitzvahs.
It's in with each section. Wow.
Actually, they're actually an halachic diyukim that you can learn from Zohar. How the Zohar, when it counts the mitzvahs, how it describes a mitzvah. There's things that you learn literally in halacha. There's a lot about it. That people make real comparison. There are dinim that you can see clearly that in Shulchan Aruch even, Magen Avram and so on, you can see clearly they learn it according to the Zohar, the mitzvah. Maybe different than the Hasag or the Rambam and so on.
Wow.
He compares it. Margolis did a great job in this. He compares Zohar to Shas. Everything that says in Shas, how it says in Zohar. He has a whole, it's called Netzutze Zohar. Netzutze Zohar is all his comparisons. This is the Zohar the Rebbe used.
Oh yeah?
Yeah. The Rebbe has Ha'aris actually in his Zohar. I once rewrote them. The Rebbe used the Zohar. It's called Margolis Zohar. Zohar Margolis. Ruv Margolis.
That was good?
He was in time of just last generation.
Yeah, he was the Rebbe.
Him, Menachem Kasher, these were the real, like the. 30, 40 years ago. Like the same time as Zevin. He was in the same generation as Zevin. It's just all.
That's true.
Yeah, he was like a Zevin type.
Reuven
Margolius. He wrote many svarim, excellent svarim.
He had a big miracle from the Rebbe also.
The Shluchim, better lip. I don't know where he was born. He has great svarim. His svarim are excellent. Maybe, I don't know. There was another Margolius called Zev Margolius, who wrote all this Shivchei Rashbi and so on. Not Zev, what's his name? Elias. No, this is Reuven. No, not Reuven. Osher. Osher Margolius wrote all this svarim on Rashbi. It's a different Margolius. The Rebbe, when he sent the first group of Shluchim to Eretz Yisrael, after the Yad Chamisha, the tragedy. Yeah. So Better Lipska told me he was one of the Kfutza. Listen to this, very interesting. He told him that the Rebbe told him to visit Reuven Margolius and give him a shlichus that he should add in his Maram Mekem is Lekutei Teira and Teira Eir and the Alter Rebbe's Tzionim when he's doing this.
Who was that Better Lipska?
No, the Kfutza. Okay, so let's continue. They went to him. I don't know.
It's amazing.
He's from the early, like in the days.
It's amazing that Mossad Rav Kook is giving it out.
Yeah, they gave out the Gvaldik is for
because they give out.
They give out everything. No, they have everything. They have everything. Magol they have. So it's a major publishing house. So let's continue here.
Rebbe used their son.
Ubarai mehem lepinchas dafresh nun heyom et beis. Isa. Be'inyan shir sukkah le'pochas me'eser.
Ihi Malchus
So it says not halacha shir sukkah
should not be less.
than eser tfachim, than 10 what do you call it, hand breadths. Is that what we say? What is this in Ruchnis, in Kabbalah? The Ihi Malchus.
10 is Malchus.
10 is Malchus, the 10 spheres. So what does it say, le'pochas me'eser? I think it speaks about the width, right?
No, the height.
The height.
The
height.
Oh yeah. I'm sorry.
More than 20.
Yeah, right. Not less than 10 and not more than 20. I apologize. Yeah.
But 10 is
The Leila Maila Me'esrim.
10 is Tfachim, as you said, but then 20 is
20 is Amos, right?
Okay, but fine. But it's in those denominations. Yeah. The Leila Maila Me'esrim, and not more than 20. We call cubits.
Handbreadth. No, cubits.
Cubits.
The Ichov.
The EU Chof Keser Elyon. The Leishalta Be'ena. Halacha, why can't it be more than 20? Because it's Leishalta. I can't see it, and the sukkah has to be Teishu Kein Taduru. Has to be a home that is for humans, not for this.
You know that it means like somebody who's sitting in the sukkah is kind of like that is the dach. Those mentals. Not from outside.
20
It was.
Ist das nicht koscher?
Nee.
But why? Why Leishalta Be'ena?
The Leisholta Be'ena. Was meant Leisholta Be'ena? Du sitzt in Sukkah.
25 feet.
20 amas is 10 meters. It's a lot.
Yeah.
It's 30 feet.
It's 30 feet. So it's 30 feet.
I think if I recall in the Gemara, there's different reasons why. There. One second.
You can see it.
There's two reasons in the Gemara there.
You could see it from inside also.
Listen, this is too heavy. Can you imagine this ceiling would be like 4 times higher than here? Here's what?
You'll be able to see it.
This is a
10 feet
pretty
maybe.
tall door.
As a matter of fact, my friends, this was brought earlier in Ayin Beis, and he brought both reasons. You remember that?
That's the legal from the
He's sitting in 770.
It's 10.
Yeah, it's true.
It's 770 house.
And I learned the Nigla before I learned the Chassidus, but I remember it from the Chassidus. Yeah,
17, how much?
Not 20.
Not 20.
unbelievable.
Not 20 feet.
Chapter 37.
20 feet.
You have it in Hilltop.
It's his hand. This is it. Listen, it's not home. It's not
Yeah.
It's not intimate, that's for sure.
Okay.
To have such a city.
So he says there. Listen to this. So he says like this: "So kamay sukkah she gavem es imam psulav yes b'zat time mishum shalaman lochav ein odem dar b'tzeil sukkah, ay mishum delay shalta be'ena." One is because it's not considered dira. What kind of dira is that? Nobody lives in a house like that, and the sukkah has to be like a house. And second, leishalta be'ena. What the reason for leishalta be'ena? I'm not sure. 1 second.
The eye doesn't grasp it, doesn't catch it. Like it's
So maybe because the sukkah has to remind us l'man yedu. So maybe it's like because the same lashon says about Ner Chanukah, by the way. That's the reason we don't do it by windows, because there's no pesum anisa if it's like a skyscraper. It may be because l'man yedu. Because in other words, you need to, and you have to see the schach. Because without schach, a person doesn't look at schach. The schach is a reminder. It's for sure. I mean, l'man yedu that is sechem. That's for sure. It's a chelik from the mitzvah. It's not just a reason. It's a chelik. If you don't have that, you don't have the mitzvah. The Alter Rebbe passes.
20th floor of a skyscraper, they wouldn't do it.
Okay,
It's problematic.
that's the reason. That's the main reason. Because in our days, in our generations,
The 20th floor, and you're putting in the menorah inside the house. There's no problem with that.
If you're putting it by the window, it's on the
the Rebbe has letters about it because the window has no tails because nobody can see it. So at least it should be al pesach beisei.
Right.
So it's al pesach beisei min bachutz. Because once upon a time, the window and door was the same thing.
All lives on 24.
That's what it was. Al pesach beisei was like a window. It was like that. Pesach beisei bachutz was literally by the this. So today, if you're the Rebbe right, that if it's up for a 20th floor, the window has b'chal no tail. So at least at the door you have the pesach beisei, so someone who walks by can see it.
But if you're on the first,
But we don't do it at the outside door. That's the thing, because also sakana and also weather and so on. But technically, the best place to light a menorah Chanukah would be the front outside door.
if you don't do it, even if you don't have any
See, I do it.
reasons.
No, we don't do it because once it was abolished, I learned about
Yeah,
it.
10 feet.
Once it was because the Gzera was abolished because the Sakana, it remained that way.
Right. Yeah.
sliding door.
Only the Bible.
No.
Opposite the mezuzah.
Api Allah.
No. We're talking about Bechlal. By Allah, it says Pesach. It doesn't say Chalein. Pesach Beis B'chutz.
Do it inside the house. It's against the law.
It's not against the lacha.
Because sakana they start doing
Even
inside.
now we have no sakana, we still keep it the way it was then.
Yeah, but Pirsum Elisa, it's not Pirsum Elisa. Okay, fine.
It's symbolic. It's symbolic.
Keep a lot of things with
No, that's the first thing to
Okay, so the same Chabad. One second. So the same Chabad now does public menorah. So we cover that. We haven't covered from Beit Zayt. The Pesach.
So,
I don't know if anybody kocht sich more on Pesach Beis B'chutz than the Rebbe did. The ganze lighting by this. Okay, so now what do we have now?
They're never higher than 20 amas.
So what does he say? What is it? Okay. Leishal Dveina, covered the law. This is all that I am Mehemna. See, the Rayman is explaining, Shir Sukkah is Lepochas Ma'aseh, it's not lower than 10, which is Malchus, and not higher than 20, which is Keser. Because higher than 20 is beyond our ability to see. 1 second. Why? Keser. Exactly, that's exactly what he's leading to.
It's the Mailam HaSoga.
Covered the law, which is covered the law, Allah Omer Moshe Areini Nosrei Decha.
he wanted
And this Moshe says, show me your covered. He wanted to see be higher than Esrim. Yeah. And Lo Shalta Be'ena. And the eye cannot see there. So he's going back now. This is the whole Pirush. It's beautiful. Tahainu the B'chinas HaKeser Lo Shalta Be'ena Shazel L'mayla Masaga. Why? So Moshe wanted to see it, but Keser means that the eye cannot. Lo Shalta Be'ena literally means the eye does not see there. Lo Shalta means shelit. The eye does not govern it, does not control. It really means it's not in the range of the eyesight. But no, it's a nice expression. It means the eye cannot own it, basically.
It doesn't care.
And seeing
What's that? Let's read it. Let's be patient and just read it inside. Why is everybody jumping the gun when the Rebbe Rashab is explaining it? It's because Keser is l'mayla ma'asogah. That's what means le'shalta be'ena. No, it's ein ha'seichel. It's higher than comprehension. So it goes a deeper reason now. It's actually a deeper reason. So it actually fits with the sukkah. Because sukkah, the chelik of the mitzvah is l'mayin yedu, right? So if you can't comprehend something, it's yedu. And Ma'ala Ma'asim is higher than yediyah. So Purim is good. Lo yoda. Ad lo yoda. The first Purim is great menhecha for Esrim. Because lo yoda. But sukkah has to be yediyah. I'm just telling you, listen.
you shouldn't always put him.
He's preparing you.
The before the things, the sukkah is for Purim soll sein. So sukkah, you could say, I drink 20 cups, up to 20. And Purim, Poka Igra.
I told somebody that the Rebbe said before you could use 4 small cups. He said, so much?
Once you hit 40, you realize the Rebbe's wisdom. Well, not everybody. Let's put it this way: if you started at 40, you wouldn't have the same type of fruit. That's the thing.
That's right. If you don't start smoking until you're 20, you won't become a smoker. You know.
Yeah.
I mean, less likely.
Okay. And nevertheless, 20 amma, in other words, is kosher, and it's not.
Up to 20 is kosher. Higher than 20 is kosher.
Yeah. Rak l'mayla me'esrim. In other words, you could reach keser, but you can't go higher. So what is the two things? He's now going to explain. Chetzeni is keser and pnimis. V'zehu. I say apostle in English. Kosher is kosher, and apostle is invalid. Kosher, valid and invalid. And it's explained elsewhere that these are the two levels in Keser. The Esrim Amma b'chinas Chitzenis HaKeser. 10, 20 Amma is the Shtims is Mamish Shkafta V'ferach. It's very nice. The 20 Amma is the outer Keser, Reisha Makan Elena Tzalim. The head and the source for the emanations, that's Arich. Well, the Ma'il Esrim Zel b'chinas Primis HaKeser. And higher than Esrim is the inner dimension of Keser. So here we have the whole picture now. V'zeu shebigish meid harein nesveidecha b'chinis primis hakeser shebechachma hu inyan primis abba primis atik. That's what Moshe requested. Moshe was Chachma. They want Kfei Decha with a Chof. He wanted Lamayla Mechof. Hold on. This is Primis, inner dimension of Kesser, which is in Chachma, manifest Chachma, and that's Primis Abba, Primis Atik. That the inner dimension of Chachma, because we learned earlier there's Eir Mayim Rekia. So this is a level of Eir. He's going to say it. Yeah. Mina Mayim Shisui, he said it. This is the level of Eir that's higher than Mayim. The Chachma Nikra Mayim v'Nikra Eir. Chachma is called both Mayim water and called Eir energy. The Mayim B'chinas Chitzenis HaChachma. Who B'chinas HaBitl the Chachma. Mayim, we also learned this earlier. Mayim is the outer dimension of Chachma, and that's the Bitl of Chachma. Ukma Mayim in the night, like Mayim that moves. Mayim is constantly moving. Moving is a sign of Bitl. It's not solid in its own place. It's in a state of flux. So it's a type of... Yeah. So the... Shai Dezer, HaChachma B'chinas Keiled in Sof. So Chetzenis Chachma is Bitl, which was Moshe, V'nachmumah, as we've learned. Through this, Chachma becomes a container for Eir Ein Sof. So it is a container. But it's still not Eir. For Eir Ein Sof HaSheira B'Chachma. And Eir is the level that is the divine infinite light that is rests and dwells in Chachma, which we learned. Shazayin Primis Arba, Primis Atik. This is already Primis Atik, Primis Arba, the inner dimension of Chachma, which is the inner dimension of Atik. V'hainu B'chinas Chachma Stima. There he says clearly. This is the level of Chachma Stima. So we're not even talking about Primis Atik in the fullest level. We're talking about Chachma Stima, unconscious or hidden wisdom. Right now he says that, yes. Correct. So what is it? In the source, it's Primis Atik, Primis Chachma, Chachma Tva. And Chachma Elav Atzilus, and the higher Chachma of Atzilus, this is the Primis and Atzmis of Chachma. So the inner and core elements of Chachma, not Chetzenis Chachma, having them unconscious wisdom of Chachma Stima from Primis Atik. V'zeu shenemer k'veidecha chosed vav. And that's why he said, not just k'veidecha kovid chof, but without a vav. Missing a vav. Because kovid, then a kovid bevav begematri lamed beis. Like we said before, kovid with a vav makes it 32. Ve'ein lamed beis nesivus chachma shein amshachas v'zein vav. Vav is amshach. Because lamed beis nesivus chachma, what's nesiv? Nesiv is a path. The 22 paths of wisdom. A path is like a vav. What does a path look like? A line. 32 of them. That's the amshachas. These are transmissions, and that's the level of the vav. That's chitzenius chachma. This is in the level of Chachma Vatzilus, Moshe's level, where there are 32 paths of wisdom. But in unconscious wisdom does not open up to paths and I guess Shvil and Nesiv. What's the difference between a Shvil and a Nesiv? A Shvil is more of a narrower. The Shvil, I know the Shvil by the Fabrengen was a Shvil. You know, it's a narrower path. How would you define in English? Shvil would be more of a like an alleyway. A Shvil, a conduit.
Smaller, not alleyway.
Okay. But basically, it is that. So Meichus Tima does not open, because very simple, unconscious wisdom does not express itself. Wisdom, even though it's only a spark, but it's already an expression. So there's 32 expressions. But unconscious, Meichus Tima, hidden, does not open up l'shvil and v'nesivus, you see how well-sourced these chapters are? This tells you right away that the Rebbe Rashab was sitting with his Sfarim. Not that he didn't know by memory, but you see some chapters he doesn't bring it every here, literally to analyzing all these levels from Eitz Chaim and from Mishnas Chassidim and the Raim Mehemnes and the Ramaz. It's a meridik.
When did he have time to
what else?
do all of that?
What else did he do? He didn't have He didn't have all the important things we're doing. He wasn't involved in all the important things that we do all day.
Everybody was in the country.
Wie viel Zeit hat in einer Tag?
He was a Rebbe. He had everything on his shoulders.
This is what the Rebbeim did all day. They wrote Chassidus from morning to night. Even the Rebbe, everyone says he was learning all day, and answering was always like a derech chagav kilo. I mean, he did it with the Rebbe, but that was.
They was learning. 20% was answering.
80%?
Yeah, was learning.
80%.
I heard half the day.
No, the Rebbe knew everything was going on. When did he do that? In the 20%?
You think he was spending half the day on answering more questions?
8, 6. That means he was learning 19 hours a day.
There's also sleep.
80% of the day that he was up, that he was.
That doesn't mean 80% by mathematics.
Yeah.
It's not mathematics we're talking about. It means he's estimating. It's 80, exactly 80. Maybe it's 78, whatever. And I'm sure every day was not the same thing. So, there were days where it was different.
14 hours a day is what they say.
Look, by Fabrengens, that was 7-8 hours. Was that called learning?
For him?
6 hours,
Or else maybe it's a topic for him. I'm sure.
You don't need to be a Rebbe to learn that much. I know people who learn all day. There are people who they just have a sefer all the time. So it's not like unheard of. I told you, he tells me, Yukasiel Farkash tells me his father passed away last year. So one day he calls him up and says to him, "Sitzich mi bafreit 10 Minuten Tag. Wo halt man den Rambam mit? Efter will ich anheben the Shir Rambam." 10 minutes were freed up in my day. What means 10 minutes? He's learning all day. He obviously finished some type of shir. So he has 10 free minutes. I like that.
A lot of people
So that's Achid. Yeah?
So what did he want to do with his 10 minutes?
So he wanted to start the Rambam.
Bowling.
We were all there watching the whole.
Listen, it's there are people also. If you love something, there are people who read all the time. It's not always the highest, holiest level. They're tivers to learn, and I'm not dismissing what they're doing. It's beautiful, but it's not unheard of concept. Davening 8 hours a day is a lot harder than learning 8 hours a day.
I don't know anybody that was
I
can read so many numbers.
And look what it says in Biyurei Hazer, B'Pashas Biyurei Hazer on the Idra Rabbah, that why is Meichus Tamah not open up to any paths and routes, is because it's Pnimis HaKeser. So we see clearly COVID with Avov is already Hamshach. Covered without a vav, in other words, that's why he said he had covered with a vav. He wanted the covered that's l'maylam esrim, not even esrim, because esrim you could have. It really looks like there's 3 levels here. There's lower than esrim, which is like more chitzein sakesa. There's esrim, which you could still have.
No, he said esrim is also chitzein.
He said that. Yeah, you're right. Okay. Yeah. Okay.
Wait.
Okay, so here we go. So let's continue.
Why is esrim
Why
kesser?
does it spell with a code? When it's,
The vav is Hamshach.
okay.
Esrim is contains kesser. Yeah. Okay, let's continue.
Why is it and they have a vav in
Esrim is a
it?
connection to
Why
esrim.
does it have a vav in it?
Chof,
Because
20.
after base.
And also,
Should be a vav.
I understand, but it is a vav in it.
Not the way it says.
Moshe, Noah asked for
This is in printing. In Torah Papyrus there is no vav.
Just in here.
Okay.
Why did they spell that out?
elsewhere it explains the elsewhere it explains that the primary interface is the level of Chachmas Tamah. The Lepomim Misalim, Lepomim Misgala. That the primary interface is the unconscious wisdom. That at times it's concealed and at times it's revealed. Sometimes it's Misalim, it conceals, and at times it gets revealed. Meaning that there are two levels of two dimensions of concealment within it. One that's concealed from the recipient, and the second that's fundamentally concealed. That's the Matan B'Seser. Matan B'Seser, when you give, we're going to learn it later. It says elsewhere, as we shall discuss later. Matan B'Seser is probably Sasser B'Etzem. When you give, in other words, Matan B'Seser, you give something that's anonymously, so it says it. It's B'Seser. It's concealed.
It's not Miskala.
It's a matan b'seis that I think is.
It's part of
social mamikal.
He's giving two reasons why.
He doesn't say specifically. Anyway, the point that he's adding here in this parenthesis that there's the two levels of the interface that Chochmas Tima itself is the interface. However, here at this stage of the Maimer of the Hemshech, he's discussing interfaces is now Keser. Meaning, Chetzenius Ak and Primius Ak. Chetzenius Keser, Primius Keser. And Chochmas Tima is above, is the higher part.
Right.
But later we're going to learn that Chochmas Tima itself has two parts.
That's what you just said, no?
In this parenthesis, exactly. So this parenthesis he's adding, remember, everything, the details are going to get more and more specific.
Can we say...
So the bottom line is what we're speaking now here in this chapter. Can't talk if 5 people are talking once. I'm trying to discuss it. I'm explaining it. And I'm saying like this. So here he's explaining the Chochmas Tima is more the Primius Ak, which is beyond us. It also serves as an interface, but it's an interface to Eid Ein Sof. Because it's concealed, Lo Sholta Be'ena, we can't reach it. Moshe could not see it. He wanted to, but he couldn't. And then you have the other side of the interface is that. So that's that part. But there's nothing there that connects to our existence. That's beyond. Then there's Arich, Chetzenius Ak, which Moshe was able to see. Chetzenius Ak.
Before Arich, you have something else. In Chochmas Tima.
You can ask anything you like. Let me just say it because you don't let me speak out. I mean, I'm going to say the full subject, and if you have a question or you disagree, you'll say it.
He didn't get to that part.
So then there's the other side. That what we're talking here is Chetzenius Ak is the interface that's the klalt, the prat. In other words, the Arich is like the blueprint that encompasses all of reality, all of existence, and that then informs, and the Reish is the beginning of the Netzalim. So you have basically two things in Ak. One as it relates to Ein Sof. That's more how the Malchus of Ein Sof becomes Atik. That's Primius Ak. And Chetzenius, and that's what Moshe Rabbeinu was unable to connect to. Kvedecha without the Vav, Chochmas Tima, Primius Atik, so on and so forth, and Primius Chochma. Then there's Chetzenius Chochma, which connects to Chetzenius Arich, which is Chetzenius Keser, which is Arich, and that has a relationship with existence, and that is the klal to the prat. In the parentheses, he adds that Chochmas Tima isn't just relegated into the domain of the Ein Sof, it also has a dimension that relates. There's a part of it that is concealed, but potentially could be revealed. And there's a part that's fundamentally concealed.
Maybe this is what Moshe asked for, because this could be misgal.
Doesn't say. Possible. Remember, his request is also documented. Let's see where he goes here with this. Still middle of talking about Moshe, he didn't finish. Because let's see what he says in the pasuk. Okay, but he just wants to qualify in the parentheses to explain that even Chochmas Tima, even the Primius, in other words, Primius Atik is also going to have two sides to it, which is already alluded to actually too. Because remember, we're talking about Primius Ak, so it is the Primius of Chetzenius Ak. So there is a connection, but he specifically spells it out with Chochmas Tima.
This whole area hasn't mentioned Ak once. You keep on referring to Ak. He's talking about Keser. I know, I understand it. Ultimately, it reaches up to there, but
that's the go back and you'll see that's the flow.
I see that's where he wants to go.
It's very clear. It's microcosm, macrocosm. We keep saying that.
Well, you don't even have to say that.
Yeah. V'zeu k'veidecha chaser d'lo yispatech l'nesivus. That's what's k'veidecha chaser. K'veidecha without the vav, missing the vav, because it doesn't open up the paths. So that's Chochmas Tima, and the same thing is in Chochma Gluya, also the inner and core, inner dimension of Chochma is also beyond paths. That's why they're missing the Vav. Now he's going to explain further. He's being more specific. This is the 32nd path of Chochma. The Chochma nikra seichel mufla shu etzma Chochma.
No, Hanasiv Alamed Beis the Chochma Hanikra Seichel Mufla.
Yeah, right. I'm sorry. Yeshlem Hanasiv Alamed Beis the Chochma Hanikra Seichel Mufla. Yeshlem at this level, that's Primus HaChochma, that's beyond paths, is actually the 32nd path. So there are 31 paths, and the 32nd is beyond paths, which again is even more precise interface. It means it's not completely beyond path, it's the 32nd path is beyond the path. It's called Seichel Mufla, a wondrous Seichel. Seichel Mufla means like a Seichel that's exalted, removed.
Yeah, removed.
Removed, exalted. Shehu Etzma Chachma, that's the core of wisdom. Like the Pardes writes in the gate of Nesivos of paths, chapter 6. That's the gate. That's the section that he talks about the 32 paths of Chachma. Okay. And look inside. Look elsewhere where it discusses in the inyan of Seichel Mufla, Seichel Nelam, that there's two levels of Seichel. In other words, there's revealed Seichel, there's concealed Seichel, and there's Seichel that's completely removed. This sounds very awful, similar to Chachmas Timas, two levels. Sosem Be'etzim and Sosem L'Fiyerech. Ma'makabel. So the Hagaz L'Sidr Baruch Shamar, yeah. This looks like the Tzemach Tzedek's Hagaz, I would say, on Mitler Rebbe's Hanocha of Baruch Shamar and the Sidr. There's an Eratera Sidr. I'll look it up. I have it. And this, on this 32nd path, says Nesiv Layodo Ayit. Ayit is the messenger.
Bird, it's a bird.
Yeah, we'll send this message. So Nesiv Layodo is the path that the Ayit does not know. What's the Lashon, Makir of the Lashon? Kehelis?
Maybe.
We say Lo Yodu Ayit. It basically means a path that no bird knows, that's unknowable. This is Ma of Chochmah. Chochmah is Koyach Ma. This is the Ma. What is Ma? The B'china Ayin, the Keser Mamish. It's the Ayin, the complete nullification, nothingness of literally of Keser itself. We're talking here Primis HaKeser. B'chinas Primis HaKeser. That's what he says, the parentheses. It's the level of the inner dimension of Keser. Shenimtze Bein Hanem Tzolim. Shenimtze Bein Hanem Tzolim. Because this is what we said, it's here between the emanations, because it's Atik. It's between the emanations. In other words, it's manifested between the emanations. V'zeu ahem shanimshich b'chochma bina al yedei b'chinas das elyon hamachlif mokem hakesa. And this is what it transmits into Chochma Bina through Das Elyon, which replaces Keser. Do you know what this means? I'll explain. Let me finish the chapter and I'll explain. Like it says elsewhere.
What does it mean?
Let me finish. And this is what Ein Sof. This is the meaning of the Eitz Chaim. That Ein Sof, which is Atik, through manifesting a Chochmah of Ak, in the wisdom of Ak, Mislabes b'Chochmah d'Atzilus, encloses itself, manifests within wisdom of Atzilus, B'chinas Atzmis Atzilus, B'chinas Primis Atzmis Ein Sof Baruch Hu. That's the Atzmis, the core of Atzilus. This is the inner and core of Ein Sof Baruch Hu. So we're not talking about the Chitzenius, we're talking about the Pnimius of Chochmah, which is what Moshe Rabbeinu wanted. Okay.
What does it mean?
So basically, it means, I told you, Atik is not Malchus of Ein Sof. Atik becomes Atik of Bria. So it's Nimtze Bein Hanem Tzolim. It's here, but in the world of emanations. That's what it means.
What is Das Elyon Hamachlif Mokem HaKeser?
That's what you have here.
Remember like this. We have here several levels. I'm going to explain that now in a moment. We have here several levels here. You have Ein Sof completely removed, whether you're talking higher than Atik or higher than Malchus of Ein Sof. So that we're not discussing here right now. That's not on the table. He's discussing the process, how Ein Sof starts relating to existence. So we have how Shir Atzmei B'Keach, how he envisioned, that would be the 10 hidden spheres. The lowest dimension of that, or the end process of that, will become Atik. As we said, Atik is basically dimension of Ein Sof as it's implanted into existence. So it becomes Atik of Bria, both of the microcosmic Bria and the macrocosmic Bria. So let's put it this way: it's the closest. It's in existence, but it's as removed as possible. So it's as distant as possible that we have in existence. It's netak, it's removed, but it is at the end of the day Atik. This is what Moshe Rabbeinu cannot access. Lo shalta be'eno, you cannot access this. Lo yodu ayit, lo shalta be'eno. All the expressions he used there. It's at the right, the Reish Galgal, the Reish is Hakav, the top of the Kav. It's when the Kav, the first emergence is the first speck that breaks the dawn of the Tzimtzum. That first step is a piercing that is completely beyond existence. But it's within existence. It's after the Tzimtzum. Okay. But so it's like what we, it's an art, let's put it this way. It's a reminder of how infinitely distant God is, even on our terms. Because it's not even a blueprint yet. You can't access it. It's there, but you can't access it. You can't see it. You can't see it. Moshe, he doesnn't discuss it. Why did Moshe want to see it, and what was his havamina, and so on. That doesn't discuss that here. We can speculate. I have some thoughts on that, but right now, let's just establish it's beyond him. Then comes with the Ises Acherai. Doesn't say that here, but it's clear. Acherai is Chitzenius Ak. But this Pnimius Ak, which is Atik, does manifest. It's going to become Pnimius Abba. First it's going to become Chochma of Ak, that's what it says in Eitz Chaim, which in turn we're going to become Pnimius of Chochma of Atzilus. So even in wisdom of Atzilus, in the deeper dimension, you really have in it also a reminder of that level. So obviously there are two gradations. It's how it's an Ak, Pnimius Ak, how it's an Atik, how Atik Ein Sof becomes Chochma of Ak, and how Chochma of Ak becomes Chochma of Atzilus. But you have a process here. What we access is a different track. We access the Chitzenius of everything. But embedded in it is also the Pnimius of it. Now in the parentheses he added, there's also in Chochmas Tima also two dimensions. That just makes it even more possible to bridge. Okay. Yeah, that's the Vort. So now we have a dimension in Ak that is beyond us, but Ak, Pnimius Ak has it. So Pnimius Ak also connects us to Ein Sof. Basically you can say when Moshe, I'll just give you my explanation, how I understand it.
Ein Sof, but it's
not. It's like this. Moshe Rabbeinu asked to see it. When the Eibusha said no, so there's a few questions here, obvious questions. Without even going to the Panim Yofis and the Rebbe's Abir. Why? What was his havamina? Moshe was wise enough to understand that. Everyone understands you can't see God and live. God has to reveal that to him. What was he thinking? And if he was thinking something, why would God not grant it to him? And finally, if he was not granted, why do we have to know about it? God has to tell us, the Torah has to tell us that Moshe asked for something and didn't get it. So clearly, there's more here than just a rejection. So the Rebbe has, from the Panim Yofis, the Rebbe brings a beer that says that the pasuk is supposed to be read, because also another question. It says, Ki lo yireini adam v'chai. So why do you have to rub it in and say, you already said that you can't see. What do you need to add? So they teach like this. But panai you reach through lo yiro, through not seeing. Which fits very well here. Moshe wanted to get it. Upanai, however, is lo yiro, is through lo yiro. Yeah, so Chedai is through yiro, and Panai is through lo yiro. Yeah.
It's a level of seeing called not seeing.
Right. And there's taka two different dimensions. So you could explain, even here, that it's not just Atik is removed. Why are we being told Atik is removed? The fact is, Malchus of Ein Sof, if God doesn't want us to have it, why are you making it into an Atik altogether? Keep it before the Tzimtzum. Why is it piercing the Tzimtzum? Because He wants us to have in here, and remember we talked about the Chiddush of the Arizal on Tzimtzum was to teach us infinite distance. He wants us on our terms to be able to know that we cannot see something. Can you imagine? In other words, the mere fact we don't see and we don't understand that alone is a Gilei Elokus. Of a true element of Elokus that's even deeper than what we do know. That's the point here. It's even deeper than what we know. The Panim Yafeh says, I'm explaining, even says it here basically, he's saying it here. It doesn't spell it out. But what's the purpose of it? There has to be a reason there's a Gilia. Why do we need to know there's Pnimius Ak? Why do we have it? So bottom line, there's a level, in other words, there's a level of knowing Lo Sholta Be'eno, and that's that. And as a matter of fact, you can go almost to there. You go to Esnim, you can go to. That's Chetzenis, a Kesed. And that you do have. And then it opens up a new dimension. That's Atik.
That's the Rebbe quotes the Panim Yafeh?
The Rebbe doesn't quote. The Rebbe says the beard, but the Panim Yafeh says it as well.
The Rebbe said the beard without mentioning.
Tainus says the Tavshin Memches. Memches. I wrote it. So I more than looked at it.
No, he said the whole thing, but he didn't mention the Panim Yafeh.
I think we zeichen it later on the Marmakin.
Panim Yafeh was a good read.
The Gvaldik Bal HaFlo.
No, noch schon aber.
Panim Yafeh is a Bal HaFlo.
Bal HaFlo?
Yeah. He's a Baal Shem Tov, he's from the big Gainim from that time. Not Nochem Shnobler. Nochem Shnobler is not Moirei Naim, is not Panim Yafeh.
Yes, Moirei
Panim
Naim.
Yafeh is for sure the Baal HaFlo. His name was a Horowitz, right?
Yeah.
He was a Talmud. Yeah, he was a Talmud he became a Chassid of the Maggid or the Baal Shem Tov. Maggid.
He heard about the Maggid. He wants to come. He came one day and he saw the shul is lady. And then 20 minutes later, Rabbi Tzufla Ditchever appeared and they started to say Brochas. Nobody. It looks like Chassidish mikveh.
Yeah.
So he decided it's not for him. And he was going away, so Reb Zusha was there. So Reb Zusha, when he goes out, said, Rebbe, I have a question. So he's telling him, the Gemara in Maseches Brachos is asking, if you have 9 people and a Sefer Torah, could you tzarap a minyan? So the Gemara said, of course not. That's Sefer Torah is not awesome. So I don't understand what Reb Zusha said. What is the Hamamin of the Gemara? Of course. Pirchas was not used to this kind of questions. So Reb Zusha said, maybe it means that even if somebody is a Sefer Torah or a Mensch is nicht, so he's straight.
Wow.
Yeah, I've heard this term.
Wow.
It's a good story,
I mean, no, whatever it was, I don't know. He had guts, I don't know.
Well, Panim Yafeh is Nigla, but it's very Chassidish beauty there. Like even this tight, Panim Le'ero, without Chassidus, I don't think it's come up with that.
Basically.
Well, there in the Sichet Memches, the Rebbe says, in the Kutei Torah, it says that with enough Yidiyas Ashli, you can kamat kaloi k'may Yidiyas Achiyuv. Enough Yidiyas Ashli. Yeah. So bottom line is, that's what we're talking about. Hold on.
And this is printed in Torah Shalom, Yedati v'Yisiv.
Right. Now, the parentheses, let me explain the parentheses. So here's the fascinating thing. Remember I said earlier that Izal is metavech between the two opinions in Kabbalah. One that says Keser is Ein Sof, Rameh, and the other that says Keser is not Ein Sof, Ramak. But Izal says the higher part of Keser is Ein Sof, the lower part of Keser is Tachten Shebamaitz, the lower part is Reish Netzolim, is not Ein Sof.
It is Ein Sof or touch is Ein Sof?
Not. Reish Netzolim is the root of the source of the emanations. That's the Izal's Chiddush. So now, here's how it works. According to the Arizal, becomes a way of reconciling, is Keser one of the Sfiras or not? Because that's also the question. According to the Ramak, it is. According to the Rameh, it's not, because he calls it Ein Sof. According to Arizal, depends which part of Keser. The lower part can be counted, the higher part is not counted. How do you explain this? So Arizal comes with another Chiddush. His expression is Kesha Keser Nimna Das Ein Nimna, Kesha Das Nimna Ein Keser Ein Nimna. That when you count Keser, you don't count Das. In other words, when you count the spheres on the Chatzeni's level, then you count Arich. And it goes Keser, Chochma Bina, Chesed Gvura Teferes. Because Das is a Pnimi by nature. Das is intimacy. You can't have Chatzeni's in that.
You have to be present at the moment.
Either you're there or you're not there. The Chochma Bina and others, you can have Chatzenius. It's like ein kisha elu das. Either you have it or you don't have it. Even though some Maimonim explains there is Chetzenius das, but Chetzenius of the Pnimius, but it's still a Pnimi, fundamentally a Pnimi. You can be a great genius and conceive of ideas. You can comprehend ideas, but to intimately connect to an idea, that's a deep, that's a Pnimi.
If you're not there, you lose the
It's Hergish, is the Hargosha of the idea, so on. So basically, when you count Kesser can be counted. So this is the Chiddush L'Arizal. According to the Ramak and the Ramed, there's a problem. Is Kesser ever counted or not? According to the Ramak, it's counted, but then you have 11. So what does he do with it? So he has a problem. I'm not sure if Chassidus anywhere explains what the Ramak does with the 11th sphere, because if Kesser is one of the spheres, what happens with Das? And he doesn't understand, and he doesn't have the distinction between the higher and low. According to the Arizal, it works. That the 10 spheres, when you count them, Chetzenius, so then Arich, because you're talking about that. When you count Pnimius, you can't count Pnimius Kesser, because Pnimius Kesser is Ein Sof. So what do you count? You count Das. Das is instead of Kesser. That's why Das is Kavam Tzoi. You have like Kesser, Das, Teferes, Yisod, Malchus. So Das in a way replaces Pnimius Kesser when you're counting Pnimius, because Pnimius Kesser is Ein Sof itself. This is what he says here. That this level of Pnimius Kesser, which you cannot count because it's beyond, it's Nimshach through Das Elyon. Hamachlif Mukayim Kesser. That replaces Kesser in this case. That's the meaning of the parentheses. Obviously, without knowing what I just said, it's impossible to figure it out. I didn't guess it. Obviously, I learned it. So Machlif Mokayim Kesser.
No, because if you make it sort of a segel, so then Das is in the middle and goes straight up to Pnimius.
Yeah. There's a Kavam Tzoi. That's how you go, yeah. And then goes to Teferes, Yisod and Malchus. This is why Das. This is why in Kishel Das also Yisod and Das, yeah.
It's like a spine.
Now, it's unbelievable stuff. But what needs a lot of explanation is, so what does it mean then that Pnimius Abba, Pnimius Atik? Pnimius Bina, Pnimius Atik. And now we say Das is Pnimius Atik, Kesser. It's like what? They're all everything? Clearly they each have their own particular role. So it looks to me, when we learned this earlier, when you have Das, that's why Mola Oretz Deis Hashem. Chet Eitz HaDas. It's all in Das. Das is where the downfall and the greatness is reached. Always Das. Kel Deis Hashem. Das Elyon, Das Tachton. Because Das is Kashrus. The Alter Rebbe says in Perek Gimel in Tanya, it's Kashrus. So Chochmah and Bina are necessary, but it's Kashrus, the final connection to something that you become one with it. Who Amada, who Yedei, who you do is Das. And that's why Chet Eitz HaDas. It's not Eitz HaChochmah, not Eitz HaBina. Because that was the problem, that they didn't just understand the Rat Tevara. They tasted it. They experienced this kashrus and that. To know it, listen, we all can read about good and evil. God also knows good and evil, but He doesn't experience it. It's like the difference between knowing about it or doing it. So we make the mistake, we think, you know what, I know about it, I might as well taste it. No. Once you taste it, you lose your innocence.
You connect to it.
Yeah, then exactly. Now you now experienced it. Once you're no longer objective. You've tasted something that's going to change your life. So Das is the key. You always feel in Das. So Das is really when a person has his kashrus, says it's like yitoker machshavte v'daite. When you really invest and immerse yourself with your Das, that's the real place of real asamkus, real immersion and learning is Das. It's hamokas hadas. That connects you to Pnimius HaKesser. Not initially, because it's actually Pnimius HaKesser as it's in the spheres. And that reveals Pnimius Abba and Pnimius Bina. That's the point. Because Pnimius Abba and Pnimius, how do you get to that? When you have Chochmah and Bina, you have Chetzenius Chochmah and Bina. How do you get to Pnimius? You need Das to awaken the Atik in it, and that awakens the Pnimius Abba, Pnimius Atik, and that's what also will have Mola Oretz Deis Hashem, Mamish Yediyas HaMahus. Exactly, that's the point. Interesting, he says Das Elyon also. Das Elyon means, in other words, and we learned this also earlier, we learned about, if you remember, Pnimius Bina, we're talking about Mevin Dover, Metech Dover, that Pnimius Bina is the grandeur of Elokus. Chetzenius Bina is the details. The flaw of Ein Sof is Pnimius Bina. But that comes later, and that's the stage, that's when the interface. So the interface works beautifully here. Wisdom is going to be a key bridge. But now he's gone where Chochmah leads you to. Chochmah leads you into Ak. and leads you all the way into Atik, to Pnimius Ak. But the fact of the matter is, what we have to do now is map it out where we are. Like, if you can find an example in your life of Chitzenius Chochmah, then Pnimius Chochmah, and then Keset, and Arich, and Atik, then you'll be able to start relating. And I guarantee you, we could all find examples for this.
No.
Relative to our levels.
If not in Kedusha, in Yonah Elamazi, you could find it.
Yeah. But first, remember, if you're not, then of course there's Leib Shuftan asking and people who don't use Chochmah altogether. He's not even discussing that. That's off the reservation. At least there has to be the journey, the search. If there's no search, okay, then, what could you do? So let's put it this way, the interfaces are all there, but you gotta get on the road. You gotta travel. If you don't travel, you're not going anywhere. So most of us, however, are we on the Nesivus? Are we on the path? Arab from Weg. Wir sind Arab from Weg. Now Arab from Weg. On a different Weg.
Paths and routes.
Would it say the Kitzur?
Paths and routes. I'm going to say the Kitzur, yeah. It's fascinating. But you see, the plot thickens. It gets more and more complicated because all the connections, you got to keep halten Kopf and alle Seiten da.
But that's three things in one line.
Yeah. But you got to break it down. I hope everybody got it to some extent. A lot of details here.
You finished Time Base already?
It's on the right.
In which daga? You know what? I've reached Panei Lo Yaro, that I can tell you. The Lo Yaro is very strong and good. If I finished Time Base, the way I'm learning like now, no way. I'm already. I'm obsessive. I'm OCD when it comes to this. I'm trying to just get a sense of what all the aspects still here. I feel like whenever you lose a detail, to me it's like you lose the whole thing. So that's for me the big challenge here. So I'm concerned. The more details that enter, the more complicated it gets.
OCD.
It's a halten Kopf. You have to write it. That's what I'm writing. I'm writing a lot. I write everything I'm writing down.
Told you to write
with the map. I write every day. I told you I write every day. Summaries, and I'm writing the analysis. It's the mamash halten Kopf with the chochmah. Because it's not the beginning of the inyan. Everything he's saying here is hemshach of Maimorim. The second section is. The first section is relatively far easier than this section. Even though because there he was laying out the first time. Now he's tying it all together. He's bringing together everything from the previous chapters. That's when things get far more complicated. It's like, and this is we're not even getting, it's just the beginning. It's halfway through. It's unbelievable. I feel like this. This is what I feel like. Something like this. The kol zeh begins Chitzenius Kitzur. The kol zeh begins Chitzenius Ak. Arich the illness. Kitzur is actually very refreshing because it just gives you a little respite. All this is Chitzenius Ak. What's all this? The all-encompassing. The klal is Chitzenius, the outer dimension of Ak. What is the outer? Arich the illness. It's the arich of the world. Like he said, L'kutei Teir in Matzeim, Bira Matzeim. Aval Pnimius Ak begins Reishis Akav Shu Atik the Ak. But the head, the top of the kav, which is Atik of Ak, even though it's an immanent energy, as we learned, it's in a state of removed state, hatoka, removed and apart from the worlds, like Atik of Atzilus. Like the Emek HaMelech says. And this is the 11th dimension of Kedusha. Antu Chad v'lei b'chushba. Well, and according to this, Ak is Bechinas Mamutza Gam Etzad Ein Sof. This now dimension of inner Ak is also an interface also from the perspective of Ein Sof. Before he was saying Ak, outer dimension of Ak, is not representing Ein Sof. It's representing Klal of existence. The all-encompassing picture, the blueprint of existence. Now, Pnimius, because it's to this 11th level, this is, and removed from Atik, it's also in Ubchinas Hayir Aleph HaMislabish B'Chochmah the Ak. And it's the 11th dimension that manifests in Chochmah of Ak. He didn't say that exact language, if I recall correctly, but that's the idea. The other manifests in Ak. Dugmas Atik the Bria Begimel Rishen is the Bria. Like he brought from the Zeir HaRikiya, the example of Atik of Bria in the microcosm that is It enters or manifests in the three heads of Bria. Umeir beprimis Chachma d'Atzilus, and this radiates into the primius of Chachma d'Atzilus. And this is what Moshe requested: show me your glory. Chof Keser. Arechampin, Shir Sukkah. Ulamayla Mechof Atik. So Kvedecha Chof is Keser. Arechampin, that's the Shir of a Sukkah. Ulamayla Mechof, higher than 20, however, is Primius Keser, is Atik. V'hu b'chochma b'chinas eir. And that's in Chochma eir, not Mayim, not the level of Moshe. Kvedecha Choser, the latest Patchel Shvilin. And Kvedecha here is missing a Vav because it doesn't open up to the paths. We can say that this is the 32nd path, the wondrous, the exalted Chachma. Here he says Yeshle. Yeah. Pnimius Chachma, which is clearly to Pnimius Hak. Okay, let's stop here. We finished chapter 167, Shal Teva Mitzlachas. We did page 337 and top of 338.